So Tudor has been stepping up their game big time lately, whether you're a fan of the brand or not. It's hard to deny that they've been making an impact on the watch world in the last couple of years. What's up, guys? Hope you guys have all been well and staying safe. Welcome back to another video. In today's episode, the Tudor Royal, a recent release from Tudor a couple days ago. Let's take a look. So just before we dive in, I just want to say, if you guys haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button down below and join the movement. We're growing really fast. Like the video, helps me out a ton. So let's get right into it. There's no doubt that this Tudor Royal carries old world charm from Tudor from way back in the day when Tudor was Rolex's little sister company, especially this model specifically. So let's break down what they've released, and then I'll give you my opinions on whether this was a good or a bad decision as far as releases go. So the watch is called the Tudor Royal. It's available in the following. They've got a blue dial with diamonds, a black dial with diamonds, a silver dial with diamonds, a mother of pearl dial with diamonds, yellow gold dials with diamonds, and black dials with gold bezels, etc., etc. So you basically have every combination of precious metal and color you could possibly think of, whether it's the dial or two-tone on the bracelet, or whether you want a mother of pearl, or whether you're looking for a basic blue or black with diamonds. You have everything you need. The prices range. They depend on the size, and of course you have the option of a 28, 34, 38, and a 41 millimeter, which to be honest covers, in my opinion, the very best watch sizes you can pick out. Very classic sizing and nothing too overstated. We're not looking at anything that's 44 millimeters and massive like a Breitling. You're looking at about $2,500 to $4,500, depending on your choice of size, precious metals, diamonds, things like that. The watches come with a 5-year warranty that Tudor says is a transferable guarantee with no registration or periodic maintenance checks required. The case is steel with polished and satin finish. The movement is a self-winding mechanical movement, the caliber 2824. It's ETA 2824 based. Obviously, this is a tried and tested movement. It's been used for decades. It's very reliable. It's very cost effective at the same time as well. We'll actually talk about this movement at the very end when I give you my opinions on why this watch was a good or a bad choice. The power reserve is 38 hours. The crown is a screw down crown with the Tudor logo on it. It's waterproof to 100 meters, just like an Oyster Perpetual. The bezel is notched in 316L steel with alternating grooves that are polished. You got a date complication at the 3 o'clock position. The crystal is sapphire. The bracelet is an integrated bracelet in 316L steel, 5 rows, satin brushed external and central links, the polished intermediate links with a folding clasp with a safety catch. So what do I think? This is the best thing Tudor has come out with in years. The Black Bay was already a big step in the right direction for Tudor, and I think it is because they've captured some of the old world charm that they used to have from back in the day. And it's very interesting what they've been doing, because Tudor over the years has been trying to distance itself from Rolex. Of course, for those of you who don't know, Tudor used to be Rolex's sister company. So basically any watch that you could find in the Rolex lineup, you could find in the Tudor lineup, or you could find some kind of equivalent. Essentially what Hans Wilsdorf wanted was for the men who could not afford a Rolex to be able to go to the Tudor, and essentially the Tudor had a cheaper movement, typically ETA based, and so you could have essentially the Rolex case and the Rolex name, the Rolex quality badge, with a cheaper movement inside, therefore cutting down the cost of your watch. That's why Tudor used to be called the poor man's Rolex. Now, over the years, Tudor has been distancing themselves from Rolex. They've been trying to create their own identity. The Black Bay was one of the very first successful steps in that direction. They've also started creating in-house movements instead of relying on completely ETA-based movements. I think for this watch, getting an ETA-based movement was exactly the right choice, and I'll tell you why. So the equivalent of a Rolex Datejust from back in the day would have been the Tudor Prince or Princess Oyster Date or Day Date, I think it was called. But essentially there was the equivalent of a Rolex Datejust, which is a watch which typically either gave you the date or the day and the date on the dial. Very classic. It's a timeless design. If you go on the used market and look for a Tudor Day Date complication watch, they do hold their value pretty well as far as old Tudors go. So why do I think this was a good choice from Tudor? Well, put simply, this watch harkens back to the time when Tudor was Rolex's little sister company. I know that sounds counterintuitive because I just told you that Tudor has been trying to make an independent image for themselves over the years. However, prices on the used market will basically indicate to you that people are still in love with the Tudor from back in the day when they were still the cheap man's Rolex. And I think they've created the perfect combination of modern technology, old world design, as well as paying respect to the time when they were Rolex's little sister company. The watch has a very similar look to a Rolex Datejust. It has essentially the same specs except for the movement, which is exactly the business model that the old Tudor from back in the day used to have. It's essentially a Rolex Datejust with a far better price, the same water resistance, similar design, similar use essentially. The Rolex Datejust, Oyster Perpetuals are kind of in the same category as the Tudor Royal. It's kind of like your everyday watch if you'd like, because it is waterproof. You can go swimming with it down to 100 meters. But at the same time, very classy and also can be dressed up. So what they've essentially done is recreated the poor man's Rolex. Some people say this is counterintuitive to what their modern design philosophy is. I disagree. I think people do want the Tudor from back in the day. Tudor was very successful back then. There's nothing wrong with Tudor's strategy today of trying to differentiate themselves from Rolex. But I do think that having a watch that essentially does represent the time from back in the day, I think is no mistake. These watches are probably going to get gobbled up on the market immediately. The price is very fair as well. You can get everything you would get out of a Datejust for half the price. The design is fantastic. The integrated bracelet is very sexy looking. You get all the choices of precious metals and color combinations you could possibly want. The movement is reliable. It's going to be cheap to service. As far as I can tell, so far, there's no downsides with the watch. So if you are in the market for a Datejust kind of watch or an Oyster Perpetual, I would recommend you highly consider a Tudor Royal. I didn't expect that this watch would come out at such a low price point. Not that I'm saying it's cheap, but definitely seeing as how this watch is going to be a future classic or already is a representation of an old classic, I think that puts tremendous value in the watch, and people are going to be looking for these left, right, and center. So if you are in the market for an Oyster Perpetual or a Datejust, do consider the Tudor Royal. It's a fantastic option from Tudor. On top of that, it adds some diversity to Tudor's lineup. People do complain that Tudor is unoriginal with their designs, considering their main sellers are the Black Bay and variations of, but now they've added a completely new genre of watch. It's more of a dressy watch, and this watch actually does have some old world class, unlike some of their dress watches they sell today. So for those of you who complain about Tudor not having enough diversity, only selling the Black Bay, being a Black Bay only company, well, now we can see that Tudor is still trying to innovate and is still trying to bring you new things to the table. I am probably going to look into trying to pick one up at some point in the future when I'm not so broke. But otherwise, if you guys have any comments on the Tudor Royal, if you like it, if you hate it, if you think Tudor is going in the wrong direction, if you think they've taken a step back, let me know down below. I do read all the comments, and I am very interested to see what you guys have to say as fellow watch enthusiasts. On that note, guys, please leave me a like, subscribe down below, and join the movement. We're growing fast. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.